Good. Are you ready? All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. March 14th.
Sorry.
No problem.
Right as we get started. All right, we'll do.
Roll call. Mine, once you're
Right, yeah. All right. Vice Chair Strouben,
here.
Board Member Cadwalder,
Here.
Board Member Crawford,
Here.
Board Member Funger, here, and then Chairman Beecham is absent.
I'd like to move to excuse Chairman Beecham's absence.
Supported.
All right, we have a motion and support to excuse Perry's absence. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, hearing none. All right, approval of the agenda. Anyone have any changes? I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So motion.
And supported.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed? Hearing none. All right, in the minutes, we have 2 minutes to approve the open session from February 14 and the closed session.
And the closed session minutes were just sent out today.
Yep.
Apologies.
So you guys have seen those.
I'll move to approve the open session minutes from February 14th.
And supported.
All right, we have a motion and support for the approval of the open session meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Actually, my mouth was full, but that was an aye.
All right, and same thing we've got for the closed session.
Also move to approve the closed session minutes from the February 14th meeting.
Supported.
All right, yeah, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? None. All right, yep. So far, so good. Public comment. No one from the public here. All right, so move on to action items. Item A for the power supply portfolio risk management.
All right. So included in your packet, there's a few documents going in reverse order. The last document in the collection of attachments is the last year's member power supply portfolio. You good? Risk management election form essentially establishes our energy hedge plan election form. Also establishes a few other details and selections that we make related to our power supply risk management strategy. Included in your board packet is also the full power supply risk management policy. It's a lot of reading and a lot of context. I included it mostly so that if you wanted to really dive into Appendix B, the hedge plan, it outlines some of those details. But then the first attachment past my memo is our current election form that we'll ask the board to take action on tonight. But each year, MPPA requires that the local governing bodies of participating or participants of the Energy Service Project update their member power supply risk management election form. This essentially establishes guidelines and a framework for MPPA to transact on our behalf against a known strategic hedge plan. One of the updates this year, in years past, if you recall, we've had different pre-made hedge strategies that we could select, either a short-term, medium-term, or long-term, basically. More volatility, less volatility, and then there's always been this self-directed option. We've always gone with the stability hedge plan, which is the longest planning horizon. I can say that it has really, you don't hedge to save money, you hedge for price certainty, and that's really convenient when the market does what it's done for the last 2 years and gets really disruptive. So I don't know all the thought process behind MPPA eliminating some of the other strategies, but they did also update.
There's no other.
There's no option.
Everybody was on
No
one option
no one was
anyways.
using them.
Yeah, I don't
There's
think.
I think one that wasn't on the same option as
Yeah.
us.
There's a few self-directives,
Yeah.
but I was not aware of anybody using the short-term or the medium, the moderate.
Yeah.
So it's unused. Great.
And why wouldn't anyone use that?
My plan, or my personal philosophy is price certainty is a good thing when you're beholden to a bunch of customers. Different philosophies at different local governing bodies, different philosophies, good for them. One big change this year was the planning horizon of the stability hedge plan. Historically, it's been prompt year plus 4 years, so essentially a 5-year planning window. They moved that from a 5-year planning window to a 9-year planning window. And what that basically what that does is give them a framework to look at these transactions that would fill a need in that 6 to 9 year range. So they've kind of broken up the hedge window, or the hedge policy, into 2 buckets. The first 5 years are where we actively transact on an annual basis to make sure we're reaching all the target minimums for the years. But if you'll notice, in the strategy, years 6 through 9 all fall into the same hedge window of 5% to 25%, I believe. Keep going, where are you? Yeah. Go to, if you just click right there on Appendix B, if you scroll down to the hedge window right here. So what you'll notice is years 6 through 9, everything falls into that 5 to 25% range. And that's just to give MPPA a tool to evaluate projects that won't come online until sometime in that window. And it be inside of a known, pre-established framework that gives them the tools they need to evaluate those projects. So it's a little different, but still pretty much the same structure. It just has a longer time horizon, and that's just reflective of how long it takes to bring new projects to the grid, how we want to diversify, how just a lot of the shifting industry, but a lot of it is just it takes a long time to bring projects to the grid. So if you're only looking 5 years out, most projects take somewhere between 5 and 7 years from idea to putting electricity onto the grid. So it makes it a challenge for them to evaluate those options that don't currently fall into our hedge window. So it's just an update and improvement. They've also taken on much more of an analytics-based evaluation with some advanced analytics that they brought in-house. And again, this fits in with that. The only other selection to be made, the congestion management, RTO capacity service is required, congestion management is required. The only other one is the renewable energy management service, and that's either to accept their prepackaged type of framework or go with the self-directed plan. Until, and I'll say the same thing as I said last year, until we understand what requirements and regulations are we're going to be required to adhere to. Recommendation is just to follow the path that, or follow the pre-established path for renewable energy management, which ultimately has us retire renewable energy credits to offset 15% of our load. So if you look on like the MPSC website, they're going to say legally we are 15% renewable, and that's all we're legally allowed to claim. But we're also stashing these renewable energy credits, and we'll have a bank of renewable energy credits. So if there's a renewable portfolio standard or an RPS that's mandated either at the federal level or at the state level. We have a bank of renewable energy credits that'll help bridge the gap to meet that requirement, because right now, it's a struggle to bring renewable energy, renewable resources to the grid. If there was a new standard that was put in place, it would be really difficult to get new projects in the ground to meet those standards. I would say that we do receive approximately 25% of our energy needs from renewable resources, and we're only retiring about 15% of our need currently. So we are building this bank up, and they do have, the renewable energy credits have expiration dates on them. They've got a 5-year shelf life. So that's another thing that we're watching. So we are actively managing to make sure none of our renewable energy credits go unused or unretired. So if we ever got to a point where we had this inevitability that these credits were going to fall off and not be utilized, we would either look to monetize those through a market sale or potentially retire more and just be able to improve our 15% position. But any questions on the election form being considered tonight?
We've had a good history with MPPA. I think we know somebody on the board there.
I know who that is. Jason serves.
Yeah. And actually, the guy that crunches the numbers,
Steve,
Steve,
yeah.
I mean,
I'll say, MPPA does a really good job managing our hedge position, managing our power supply.
yeah. I mean, yeah, there's been no problem. And, yeah.
So it is staff's recommendation to remain on the stability hedge plan and accept the renewable energy management services.
Are you voting the same way you voted in 2022 on those 5, 6 options?
Yeah, well, the form has changed a little bit, and that there's not the same, it's changed a little bit, but yes, of the items that remain, the recommendation is to stay the course on the 2 items, 3 items really, even though congestion management services, there's not really an option.
Oh, this time around, okay.
Right. Any other questions or comments? I guess I'll look for a motion to approve the stability hedge plan with the stability plan and the, it's kind of weird, the accept renewable energy management services
Yeah.
selection.
Yeah, I'll move to go with the stability plan and then to accept the renewable energy management services.
And I'll support.
And then in your motion, if you could go ahead and just include the FTR services.
With the, with the FTR services as well.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Right. We have a motion and we have an approval. The item, so action item B, the draft
All right.
budget.
If you want to just pull up the other document, we can just go to that. So, included in your board packet is our draft 2024 operating budget. I asked Megan to pull out big picture stuff, so I figured we would start big picture, and then if there are individual questions on line items, we can dive into those. But if you just look up to the screen, which is not included in your board packet, you can see that here we've got the 2023 budget, 2023 projections, our 2024 budget, and then the different, how much it changes between the budget and the projections by dollars and by percentage. And then something new we did this year was we just wrapped up a 5-year rate study with UFS, and included in that was 5-year pro forma financials, and that serves as the basis for our cash management plan, our capital, really our operations, and it's kind of our benchmark to where we're at. So we included where UFS's assumptions would have had us for fiscal year 2024, because that keeps us on track to manage cash levels and make sure we're adhering to the plan, that, or at least understanding where assumptions deviate from reality. Obviously, in year one, we would expect assumptions not to deviate too much, and as we get into years 2, 3, 4, and 5, each subsequent year we'd expect us to deviate a little further from assumptions. But we actually did all this after we generated the entire budget. Didn't want to manage to a plan, wanted to do what makes sense naturally, and then look to see, does it align with our plan, and should we adjust? So what you can see is we are projecting increased revenues. That is twofold. That's partially because of the PCA being budgeted to be, our power supply is still budgeted to be above our base power cost. So we're anticipating that PCA to stay in the north of 0.75 cent kilowatt hour range for the duration of the fiscal year. Our purchase power is actually relatively stable compared to our current fiscal year 2023 projection, but as you compare that to the 2023 budget, we think that we hope there is more certainty and less surprises in the upcoming year compared to last year. One of the biggest surprises being, or two biggest drivers of that, were environmental compliance with expenses and NOx compliance expenses with Bell River Power Plant, and then just natural gas prices and market prices. Market prices and natural gas prices on the forward curves are showing reduced pricing compared to last year, so that's driving a little bit of it. And the one thing that we had the ability to plan for this year, or have insight into, was the NOx compliance for Bell River. Last year, that was one that kind of ballooned and was not foreseeable. Again, total operating expenses very much in line, pretty much in line, little elevated compared to the UFS assumptions. Operating income stays pretty much in line, and then at the bottom line, the net income stays pretty close. Obviously, there's slight variations. I will say, from an operating revenue standpoint, one of the things that we did was we established kind of a baseline no growth scenario, because we've actually, for this fiscal year, we've seen a reduction in kilowatt hours. Volumetrically, we've sold less kilowatt hours this year than we did fiscal year 2022 at this point. So it changes things a little bit, makes it, we know we're having natural growth, but weather plays such an influence in year-to-year fluctuations in sales. So we kind of did that, and we use that as our base case.
Because we gave too many LEDs out.
There's a lot of moving parts, but yes.
I'm kidding, I'm just,
But
sorry.
no, but then we took that from there, and we also looked at known load growth. We know we have Grand Rapids Gravel Company that's currently just firing up, and that we've got a little bit of idea of what their load's going to be, but we've not seen full operation, so we're very conservative in adding that in. In the grow operation that's on the west side of town, we're starting to get insight into what their operations are going to look like. One of the big focal points between the draft budget and the final budget is going to be understanding, using the information we gather over the next couple months to fine tune some of those projections for next year, because we're somewhat shooting in the dark in terms of what we'll actually see in billable units from both of those places. We got an idea, but don't necessarily have an annual picture of what they're going to do. So we've added revenue for both of those, and then we've offset that additional revenue back to operating expenses. And we balance everything back from purchase power to revenue standpoint to the official projections and forecasts from MPPA on our power supply. That way we make sure we're projecting to sell an appropriate number of kilowatt hours compared to what they anticipate us purchasing, adjust for losses, and make sure that
our revenue aligns with our power supply, and then we adjust both together based on total number of anticipated megawatt hour sales and megawatt hour purchases. I'll stop there for a second. Are there any questions on the income statement? But I'll draw attention to the bottom line and the operating income. Ultimately, trying to align our operating income and our net income with the UFS assumptions. Making sure they're at least relatively close is important to making sure we adhere to the 5-year rate plan that targeted that cash growth and has a 5-year cash management plan associated with it.
What did those numbers, net income, look like going forward? I mean, it's gonna go up because we're gonna be raising.
Well, I mean, our rates are gonna go up, but our expenses are gonna go up.
Yeah.
So, I don't recall, I don't have it in front of me, I don't recall what I would anticipate net income growth next year is off the top of my head, but I don't have those numbers offhand.
So like for 23, being so far under the budget, like what we budgeted for net income, you know, why are we back up in 24? Are we just assuming like the PCA and things are gonna put us back in line this
Yeah.
year?
A lot
So it's
of
gonna be-
what hit us this year is being corrected through the 5-year rate plan, whether that's inflation and our O&M expenses increasing, and then power supply. Power supply eroded quite a bit of cash, and we're gonna come in significantly under that budget, but it's all, really, a lot of it's tied right back to purchase power.
And even
So-
like, yeah, and even if the kilowatt sales are like flat or maybe a little bit lower, we're still, like, our costs are better aligned. Like our service fee will, you know, our rates better aligned to make up for that difference then?
Yeah, and part of it is there's a lag with the PCA. And with it being a 6-month rolling average.
Right.
That actually starts, it's the 6 oldest months of an 8-month window. Because it takes us 2 months to get all the information we need. So it's a rolling 6-month average with a 2-month lag. It takes a long time for all those power supply costs to roll onto it, and it will also take time to roll off.
So it'll be above for, well, you know, we'll be at a premium if rates go back to,
Yeah,
power.
if it goes, and it,
Purchase power goes down.
and there's more factors on that, because but yes, over the long haul, if our power supply costs go down and can stay consistently down, it'll take a while for that to come back, but it takes quite a bit of time, because every month you've got to roll off, there's a total quantity of dollars you're either short or long, and only a finite number of kilowatt hours to recover it over. So in the winter, you get upward pressure on the PCA because you're spreading that net need over fewer sales. Well, in the summer, you get upward pressure from the summer because that's when your power supply typically is the highest, but you have more kilowatt hours to spread that expense over. I'll be honest, we're still learning quite a bit of the nuanced mechanics of how the PCA is. We understand the PCA and what it does and why it does it, but we're learning those nuanced details of how it reacts in different scenarios and understanding it at a more granular level at this point. But the goal is to get back to somewhere in that $500,000, $600,000 positive net income that sets us up to funnel into our capital budget and continue to exceed our depreciation with capital investment and be able to grow some cash. So, all right, you want to roll on to the next page, Megan? So included here is the capital budget and cash flow projection. So we've got a bucket of IT-related projects. They're really, pull up my notes. And we put a lot of these in just big buckets. But included in the IT is just little things like potential for a need for
hardware, a couple pieces of hardware as we learn more of our IT. The cooling system in our IT room is less than adequate, so we need to update that. Yeah, it's a lot of smaller projects. We've got some OT upgrades that we need to do, operational technology upgrades we need to do. Granted, that's not IT, it's OT, but it all falls into that one bucket. Capital equipment, again, this is just all the various equipment that we need throughout the year. We've got some three-phase pad mount units budgeted, some meters budgeted, just standard capital equipment that we know we don't have definitive plans, but past history indicates that some things are just cyclical. Voltage conversion projects, again, this is our work on the east side of town. So what this includes is the $160,000 to the contractor that we approved last month, and then it also includes additional money that we want to work on having contingency plans. One of the uniquenesses of trying to plan in the current environment is lead times are super long, price certainty doesn't exist, and our cash certainty doesn't exist. So it makes it really difficult to make extremely large capital purchases that you won't have to pay for 9 or 10 months, because so much can change in such a short time that it makes it tough. One of the things that is very challenging for the east side feed is we have to buy a bunch of really big underground cable to pull under the Grand River and get from the dependable gas property all the way to Front Street, right, Ryan?
Yep.
That price has more than doubled, the cost of the material has more than doubled in the last 2 years, and it's a major component. So what we'd like to do with that extra money is one of two things. Either turn Ryan loose, he's working on designing some smaller projects in individual streets and individual taps to come off the new main line that's going right by Jim's house. But he's either going to be able to, we're working on plans for these smaller projects, and what we'd like to do is take that extra money and say, how do we carve this up and get the biggest bang for our buck and advance this project forward as fast as possible. The smaller projects, we have most of the material in stock. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan. I said we talked about this week, so I'm pretty sure I'm on board. But we need minimal stuff, so with minimal investment, we can turn loose on some of these projects and make a real impact. Or if the conduit or the conductor pricing dips to a certain price point that we want to be able to take advantage of, we want to have pricing-based triggers to pull the trigger on getting that wire in. Obviously, that purchase would most likely be a board purchase. Actually, I'm almost positive it would be a board authorized purchase. I think it's about $150,000 to $200,000 worth of wire, so it's a big chunk of change. So we just want to have that extra money is earmarked for that, but we don't have a definitive plan between now and the final budget. Want to get more formal around when do we need to make decisions on, do we go the route of doing some additional smaller voltage conversion off of the new main feed, or when do we make the call to say we need to pull the trigger on the wire. So more to come on that, but that's why that number is inflated beyond the $160,000 contractor invoice that was approved, or estimate that was approved last month. Vehicle replacement fund, we continue to make contributions to that. Facility improvements, there's just some various smaller facility improvements. Now that we've got the new camera system up, we see some use cases and see some other areas that we want to expand the usage. Same with access control. Want to make some facility improvements with the electric infrastructure that serves like the IT room. So a lot of smaller projects, nothing that really stands out like, hey, we need to do this like the east side feed. It's a big single project.
System expansion budget, we do anticipate Harvest Meadows opening up another phase this calendar year yet. They've indicated that they're hoping to open up another phase this year. So we want to make sure we budget for that growth and that we've got that allocated. I will admit that is somewhat of a placeholder number, but a lot of these are. It's hard to get construction estimates sometimes that are worth much. That provide much certainty too far out, but we are looking at this as a specific one to be able to fine tune that budget number between now and final budget. And then minor capital projects is just all the smaller projects that we know are going to come up, whether it's customer installs or needs that come up from Ryan where he says, hey, we've got these 2 spans that we trim out every 2 years and it's a nightmare. We should just convert it to underground, or we should just bring these poles out to the road. That's what I like to have, that minor project capital budget that gives him the flexibility to be able to make the smaller system upgrades. Because if we always only focus on the big projects, then you end up neglecting the 2 spans here and the 3 spans there that really can round out and improve the reliability. So in total, we have $922,000 roughly of capital projects planned. You look down at the operating or the cash flow projections. We're anticipating generating $1,051,000 worth of cash through through the operating budget. We've got about $70,000 of carryover. We anticipate paying for the Hendricks that the board approved earlier this year. That I believe is scheduled to be delivered in July, so that invoice will carry over into next fiscal year, so we back that out, leaving us with approximately just under $1 million in total cash available for new capital projects next year. Again, goes back to the UFS assumption to make sure, just to give us a barometer of how we're stacking up. We are projected, the assumption was based on $1 million of capital investment. Again, we're pretty in line with that. And then projected cash growth, UFS was projecting just under $30,000 in cash growth. We took a conservative approach and approximately doubled that number. And then the last page is just some graphs that just kind of highlight that we're a lot of consistency, really.
Yeah.
Outside of outside of the regular growth in operating revenues, which have steadily increased, you do notice a slight uptick this year. That's going to be attributed to the PCA and the rate action that was taken in effect January. A lot of other stuff is staying relatively stable. Some of the scale gets off a little bit. Little adjustments are actually bigger numbers, especially the power supply number.
Karen, is there a flexibility in there? Let's just say that cable that you guys are thinking about for the East project comes available, but yet you have 2 smaller ones that Ryan's talking about, maybe replacing some underground or something. Is there flexibility to go ahead and purchase that under that one lump sum purchase of getting that to save fiscal dollars for the following year? And is there a room for you to make those type of decisions?
To the extent that we don't commit ourselves. And that's the problem. That's why we don't want to commit to one single path now, is once we place that order or once we spend those dollars are allocated. And when you've got a 9-month to 12-month lead time, you've got to commit those dollars pretty early. It's probably, I think a lot of that cable, you remember what Michael said, Brian, about a 9-month lead time on?
It's all that, yeah.
On Okanite?
Yep.
So, we would have to make a decision. What I anticipate happening is us placing an order for the cable late this calendar year with the plan for it to come in the following fiscal year. And now I start losing track of what year we're in. But coming in, being delivered in late 24, which would be 25 fiscal year, that gives us the opportunity to budget for it appropriately, and more than likely, pricing's not going to hit that price point that we say got to pull the trigger. But to give an idea, when we pulled under at the township park, we used the same conductor
was what, about $10 a foot, Ryan?
Yeah, it was 11 something a foot.
It's $23 to $24 a foot now.
Yeah.
If it can hit $18 a foot, we'd like to pull the trigger probably. Maybe $17 a foot, but that's still a tough pill to swallow when you compare it to $11 a foot a couple years ago.
Yeah,
And we need a mile and a half of conductor.
Yeah, just under that.
Yeah.
How volatile is that market? When do do we have anything that triggers us as to when the price goes down?
We need to see a trend because all wire pricing is price adjusted at the time of shipping. So there is no price certainty, and that's one of the hesitations of pulling. At some point, we just have to accept we need to do this. I don't think it's right now because we have enough work and enough benefit that can be gained by turning Ryan loose to say, hey, go, here's some dollars. You know, like I said, he's working on piecing out individual streets and individual sections of wires into really small projects. So we can say, all right, this one's 50,000, this one's 100,000, this one's 20,000, this one's 200. You got $250,000 in room. Let's grab this one, this one, this one, and this one, and tackle it. But yeah, we try to create as much flexibility as possible. For one, we never know what's going to happen. This year, we had a truck, we had an aging fleet, especially the old bucket truck. It's not going to be replaced until 2026, and we got a $15,000 repair on it this year. There is no planning for, there's being prepared for that, and there's expecting it. And nobody expects it. We were, I'll say not prepared, but we were not anticipating it, so you can only be so prepared for the things that you don't anticipate. But we know things like that are coming. So, the smaller projects, we try to keep in the minor capital projects budget. We try not to pull from that because I guarantee Ryan knows right now on the top of his head where he can spend every bit of that. But needs will come up throughout the year, customer installs. Hey, customers doing this, now's the time to convert this to underground and do away with this span. So you use that budget for advantageous projects, and if you get so far into the year, you make it intentional. But then there's a reason that's a smaller budget. And with the majority of our focus on the east side feed, I still want to maintain as much flexibility over there. We're firm committed to building the main line down Jackson and north. And then we know what else needs to be done. It's just a matter of how do you maximize the funds that you have available, the price certainty you have available, and the financial security that you have. And right now with the disruptions, I would be hard pressed to commit firm resources that far out, knowing that we have this summer ahead of us in a NOx compliance season that we don't know what it's going to look like.
there's a need for it, but it's not a need that needs to be addressed today. We stick it along with it, and we're going to continue, so.
It's part of it, and it's part of a bigger project. It's a 3 to 5 year project. And it doesn't have to go in a sequential order.
Right.
We need to have, the only thing that's really needs to happen sequentially is we need to get the main line built that connects north, that runs the contractor's line, North and Jackson. Beyond that, we can carve it up a lot of different ways, and it kind of goes back to the risk matrix that we've developed for evaluating all these step-down transformers. Is we want to make sure that we have the funds available to make the biggest impact possible, knowing that we're going to be dealing with this project for many years. So maximize the benefit in incremental timeframes along the way.
In your cash flow projection, that's not including any extra payment to the pension.
Oh, I forgot to say that. Sorry. No, we have $120,000. So included in the budget of notable items, $120,000 right now, $120,000 of additional funds going to the surplus division and the pension plan, which
Is that tucked in bond principle?
It is tucked in
Under
on,
operating
Yeah,
okay.
expenses.
it's in your operating under employee benefits.
Okay.
But yes, it does include, so this year we made $75,000 in additional payments and stopped making those payments at the end of the year. Next year, we want to make sure we budget for it. That's something that we will, I wish we would have better information on between now and the final budget, but we don't get our pension valuation until June. And yeah, who knows what's gonna happen after last year. But we did move $100,000 from the surplus, or the hybrid division over to the surplus, and we made $75,000 in additional payments. And then again, this budget supports $120,000 in additional payments. Yeah, but happy to answer any questions on any individual account. Once you really get into individual accounts, it becomes important to go down to the subtotal, because inside of there, things move regularly, and you get really large percentage changes compared to projection, budget next year to projections for this year. But if you really boil it down to like distribution expenses, it's just moving pieces, but the pie doesn't grow a whole lot.
You know, like, what percentage, do you know, like, what percentage depreciation we are? Like,
About 40% overall system. Our systems,
You have that in the metrics last month?
I believe so. Yes, I should have it actually. I got it right here. I forget I have this. On full computer.
Pretty sure that's in there.
Yeah, what was last month? It was February. We are approximately 54% depreciated.
okay.
Yeah. Our target is less than 65.
Yeah, but it's like, we were probably above 65 like 5 years ago or something, probably, huh? I mean, we've been
Heavy on the investment.
way over our depreciation expense for,
Yeah, I mean, last year, I was just looking, we had 1.5 million in investment. Now granted, that's what is capitalized, not necessarily what was spent last year, compared to depreciation of $750,000. So we're about
I was
twice.
just saying our capital budget's
Yeah.
roughly $1 million each year.
Yeah.
Ish.
It's roughly 35% over depreciation, roughly.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else you wanted to talk about with the budget? We might hear questions.
There was less abnormal things this year, I would say. One-off things that we're planning for just this year. We incorporated new expenses that we know we're having associated with changing IT vendors. So we incorporated everything. Now, I would say the only other thing I would add in terms of the budget includes salary increases, increased budgets, but nothing standard across the board. My goal is to provide each manager with some flexibility and what they offer out. And this spring we'll have contract negotiations with the union, which will dictate what their eventual salary changes will be. So I don't remember what percentage we put in there, but it was overall in general, the budget, we took a very conservative approach. But we did that last year as well, and it wasn't conservative enough. Again, I think there's a little less volatility this year. We know that this bad stuff these costs are gonna come, where last year was a little more of a surprise. Nobody had an idea what the war in Ukraine was gonna do to natural gas prices for the entire year. And
Just last year was a first year of some very different NOx compliance rules, and there's a lot of volatility last year. But I would say overall, the budget really aligns with our long-range financial plans, and I think balances well our investment in the investment in back in our system, investment in people, and our adherence to a cash management plan that will ultimately have cash growth and return our cash levels to that 140, hopefully 140-ish days padding, or 20-ish day padding over the 120 that's by policy.
Everyone good?
Anything else?
I can answer all kinds of questions. I mean, I could expect
Sure,
some
there's-
random question at
Put some
least.
spreadsheets in there.
You want to find a random
I'd
question?
love it.
Yeah.
I won't be able to answer it.
And wait till you get to city council, I'll have some. for you.
Can we- Why did meter reading expense go up?
Because the cost of Yukon is going up.
There you go.
Cost of what?
Our
So think of
metering
pop quiz or
software.
something.
I love it. I would say I tell you, so the budgeting process is very much an interesting process, and
Oh, yeah.
I'm satisfied then.
it's always fun. I'm sitting here going, man, I remember that when we had a conversation. I gotta look to see how much it changes.
Increase in software support.
Increase, yeah. I was thinking of the maintenance of the meters, because maintenance of meters went up as well.
That's to repair any that we send back to E.
Yeah. So that does bring up a good point, and that's all attributed to Ryan. As meter lead times really got out there, found out that we had the option to repair meters. And it was a gamble, because you have to pay to have them there, pay to evaluate them, and if you don't have them fixed, you're committed to buying a new meter, basically. Because they waive a lot of fees if you just purchase the replacement. If it can't be repaired, they heavily incentivize you to replace it. Well, we've spent money there, blown the budget out, but it's saved more money than it's cost, and more than anything, the turnaround on getting meters is much quicker to have a meter repaired than to order a brand new meter. So it's helped support not only just saving money, which is great, I love that, I'm cheap, but it improved our operational reliability and our need, it minimized our need to try and project meter needs out 12 to 14 months. It allows us to repair and replenish our stock in smaller bunches. So it was a great move.
What is the rate of failure on those? Not very many
How many have we sent back? I don't know how many we've sent back.
out of X?
Oh, I don't know, we might have like one or two every other month, maybe?
They're pretty reliable.
I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna
it's
say.
fairly okay, it's kind of a pain in the butt when it happens and kind of discourages you, but it isn't that bad. I mean, I guess the most discouraging part is we just got a shipment of 50 brand new ones to put on the shelf, and they immediately recalled them and said the node is inefficient and will fail, so send them back right away. We didn't even get to open the boxes.
And that would have been a major concern
Yeah.
if we didn't do the repairs along the way, because
Yeah,
one place,
we would've needed-
we would have really needed them, where we ordered 50.
Or they would have been out, we had to go.
Unless they like
Figure out how to
you,
get
when
them
they
back.
needed them in the village.
Well, that was
Florida.
because they didn't sell
They're specifically programmed for us, so they
Oh,
don't
wow,
work in
no,
a different
I'm-
system.
Okay.
We don't-
Their hours.
These are expensive, and you don't keep this
Underneath of
the lead time's so long that we
Right.
put another
Because
order in,
I-
constantly are
The
replenishing,
total
but
of
the stock dips so much, and then
I remember
replenishes,
seeing
because you can't make, the in-time production doesn't exist
And they tell you that something's
anymore.
wrong, and you ship it back, and they use it.
Yeah, hopefully they picked up the cost of shipping back to them.
Did they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
of
sure
course
they
they
Yeah.
will.
Awesome.
The truck doesn't have to come up and then charge
So,
us.
so you ship them in, so you
I
actually
know,
ship them
exactly.
in.
Mhm.
ship them out to get fixed. You don't get the parts here and we can fix them.
Oh, geez, no.
No,
We have no interest in that.
no, I wouldn't.
No,
Okay,
Yeah, circuit boards, I mean,
They have to be recertified and tested and
Yeah,
made to make sure that
yeah, you gotta be like
compliance.
a guru for that stuff. and
okay.
some meters they do make
Yeah.
more customized. A lot of GE meters for large customers, you can kind of like RAM cards, you can swap out cards and they, change their functionality. We don't do those.
Okay, so when are we gonna get solar panels on buildings and an indoor pool?
Indoor pool, talk to Jim. We deliver electricity, water, electricity, don't
They're
get
gonna do the Lowell powered municipal pool.
I personally am not in favor of the municipal
But,
pool.
or.
That's what Jim wants to hear right now, it's more pool conversation.
I missed the last meeting, but I did watch it online.
Okay, so anyway, skip that, go ahead.
Hey, I'm done. Or do you want an answer on solar panels? To be determined.
That would be
No.
great.
Honestly, we are, with the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, we became eligible, or we will become eligible for direct payment tax incentives, where before the IRA, any non-tax-paying entity had to partner with a tax-paying entity to be able to harvest the investment tax credits that really made the economics of solar work out. The IRA opens it up for our ability to evaluate it. It still is tough to justify on a small scale. Your best bang for your buck is utility scale solar, but it is more likely to evaluate with the IRA and be feasible with the IRA than it was before.
Is it because of Michigan, or is it because?
So that's federal. Well, in Michigan, it just, the sun doesn't shine a ton. The best spots for solar in Michigan are the southern corridor. Anywhere north of I-94 tends to be in good wind territory. But I'll just say there's an opportunity to evaluate some partnerships or to look at the potential for solar in the future.
I didn't know if that was a problem because of them weighing so much, being on a building, or like what I have talked to a friend of ours in Louisville, is that they love them in parking lots, because instead of a blacktop hot area for all these cars, everybody loves parking there because those create a shadow,
Well,
shade for these cars, and they're getting
and
a lot of sun, so.
and we'll get off topic a little bit,
That's
but I have my own personal thoughts about putting solar panels on roofs. I'm very cautious in doing that. Those roofs were not designed
No,
to have solar panels on them. It needs to be a consideration. It can be done. It's been done countless times successfully, but I think it adds new considerations. Do you want to put more holes in the piece of your house, the piece of your building that keeps the elements out?
right.
It can be done. The biggest question with solar is the space requirement. Where would we put meaningful solar in Lowell without it taking up a piece of property that could be better used for something else?
In a parking lot.
That's why they're very popular. You don't lose space. I was working with farmers in the middle of cornfields that put solar panels on canopies because they don't want to take away even a small piece of their property.
Right.
Because it generates revenue. For them, it was a bonus. They parked their tractors and stuff under it, but it's the same theory with parking
Okay.
lots. So there's one right next to Gravity Tap House, like a public lot up on the belt line that's covered in solar panels.
Okay, good to know. Good conversation.
If we were going to evaluate that in Lowell, that'd be the first place I would look, is city parking lots.
Me too.
And they're pretty small, we don't have any major
That's-
ones.
That's the problem. A megawatt takes about an acre, or about 10 acres, I'm sorry. 7 acres in a parking lot probably. So it's tough to put meaningful solar in a densely populated area. It's not impossible, it can be done, the economics would need to be ran out.
Okay, thank you. Good to know. Is the meeting done?
I was just wondering who else has a quick question?
I'll move we accept the 2024 draft operating cap and capital budget.
And I'll support.
Right, we've got a motion to support for the draft budget. Any comments, questions? There, I think. All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the draft budget signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None.
Boy, it's not even 7 o'clock and we just made it through.
Yeah,
Some
so,
taxpayers.
Hey, Perry tried to throw you under the bus the last
Yeah.
meeting, guess what?
Done before 8.
What'd you say?
We're on track.
yep, so on performance data, and apparently we're gonna have to skip that outage report.
Yeah, that outage report, that outage report's a great one. Preface,
Yeah,
it's uneventful.
and we'll hear about it later.
So performance data, again, we highlight a lot of this on a monthly basis. Kilowatt hour sales are down, revenue is up over previous year. So it's, again, more of the same, PCA, rate action. Moving on to the cost per kilowatt hour, again, cost jumped because a lot of that's driven by PCA. Some rate increase is factoring into that as well. I will stop briefly on investments and cash. We've been waiting to see the cash rebound, waiting, and it's just taken a while. We found the confluence of all things financial lined up last month, and all of our power plants were operating well, market prices were down, and we continued on the trajectory to stabilize cash. So we saw a large cash growth in the month of February, actually returned our cash levels back to February 2022 levels. So we are not back to where I would like to be, but we are headed in the right direction. I'll feel better after this turns into a trend instead of a 1 month change. So, but we put all the mechanisms in place with the PCA and the appropriate rates that the math should pan out.
So we weren't invested in an SVB?
No. No, we stayed away from tech companies.
Good move.
Moving on, aging analysis is very similar story. Delinquent balances, again, they fluctuate all over the place. This month was a good month where things started rebounding back with that balances of inactive accounts. And again, the office staff does an awesome job maintaining that and really proactively addressing potential for bad debt. But you can't control everything. We just found out a customer today was arrested. That'll be in the news. Can't plan for that.
No,
So,
can't plan for that.
Potentially a bad debt.
Where Perry is at?
No, he's in Colorado.
Denver.
It was a topic of conversation today that this story you'll read about could lead to potential bad debt. Maybe not. We got a deposit as a renter, but no matter how proactive, just bring it up because no matter how proactive you are, you can't keep Perry out of jail. I mean, moving on to auto pay, paperless. Again, things continue to trend. Like I said, I imagine that at some point we've got to plateau out.
Nice
But
little mini
that's
customers.
pretty good. Yeah, these upward trends are nice.
To think of where we started a little over a year ago, not having, I mean, December 21, we basically started from the ground up again. With a platform that was a little more reliable. You see some bigger jumps that have been attributed to different changes and stuff, but I mean, really that active portal registrations is just a nice smooth growth.
I was gonna say, I mean, what do you attribute this jump since November
On the blue line,
on the blue line? I mean, that's,
That was a change that customers had to, I don't know exactly the difference, but as they registered for the portal, it was easier to register for paperless billing.
To navigate it.
It was more of the, like, what are default settings and what aren't default settings. It just it made it it made it a passive move to sign up for paperless billing and an active move to get a paper bill, because
okay.
most customers that sign up as an active portal registration, or as a active customer registered to the portal, you don't need a paper bill anymore. Typically, those customers would just rather do it, but unless you incentivize or make it something they don't stop to pay attention to go, wait a second, I do want to go paperless bill. Most of the time they go, if it's already checked, they go, I don't need a bill, and move on. So it's just a shift in some of the default settings on
Fantastic.
the registration process. PCA, again, you saw the jump in average kilowatt hour. A lot of that is attributed to that jump in the PCA. Again, this is one that power supply has been down, but we're projected to collect that short revenue requirement over fewer kilowatt hours, so it drives that PCA up. And it's where we're starting to get a better understanding of how the different moving pieces impact the other moving pieces and what impact they all have on the NPCA. But that is performance data. Outage report, Ryan, you got this? It's heavy.
It was pretty rough in February. We did have a couple ice storms in that month, so we potentially could have had a whole bunch of outages, but instead we were able to send some people out to help out other communities fix their damages. But I tried to plug the information in for the month of February just to see what the numbers came out. We actually had to have an outage for it to be able to do anything. It wouldn't spit the numbers out because it just didn't have anything to generate. But if you,
Oh, so you got that divisible by
Yeah.
zero
Yeah, just
Excel sign.
flick a break the next time.
if you do go out to, just for instance, if you go out to March and then say we'll go to March 10th, because we did have an outage, it does allow us to generate some numbers, and our numbers there are 99.9999% available in that time frame. Last year it was 99.9998, so we did improve.
We say we want 5 nines, that's a lofty goal. 5 nines is typically transmission level standards, and that's a highly effective transmission system at 5 nines.
Pretty amazing month.
Yeah.
It's a bummer to spoil the practice this month already, so we have an outage this month, but still, it's not really that bad.
Suicidal squirrels. They'll do it every
Starting to
time.
come
Part
out.
of their plan.
Brian pays him to keep him on his toes, but no. But no, that's the outage report. But it's a great month. I appreciate, part of this is luck. Part of it is proactive, good management of the distribution system. Again, can't control the weather, you can't stop an ice storm. Nobody could have stopped the damage that they got down south, no matter how proactive you are, but how fast you're able to restore and what outages you are able to, or what storms you are able to weather is directly indicative, or directly connected to the management of the distribution system. And Ryan and the guys do a great job.
Thank you.
Moving on to the income statement. I will draw your attention to 2 lines, because it's a change. Purchase power came in under budget for the month. For the year, let's not look at that number. But purchase power came in under budget for the first time in a long time, which drove quite a bit of increase, going above budget on operating income, trickled all the way down to a $220,000 positive net income. Megan thought something was wrong. Still isn't quite sure that things are, nothing got missed, but no. This is again, a lot of work has gone into getting to this point. Support from the board in taking the necessary steps to ensure financial security, whether that's adopting the updated PCA formula and policy, or taking supporting the rate action that I know is always something that everybody wrestles with, needing to ask more of our customers. But ultimately, as a not-for-profit utility, I feel like we operate very lean. There's not waste in there, so the board is supported in taking the necessary steps to improve our ability to weather this financial storm, but brings our current year-to-date net income up to just over $300,000, which is still behind the budget for the year, but we put the mechanisms in place, and now we just need to let them continue to work themselves out. Any specific questions on the income statement? No pop quiz? Yeah. All right, on to capital projects. Again, not much to report here. It's been relatively uneventful. We will be focusing on Stony Bluff Phase 4 and getting that wrapped up here, and you mentioned it in the manager's report. Here in the next few weeks, we'll be buttoning that project up, so we'll see some movement there. See some movement on the Energy Center emergency generator soon. See some movement on capacitor banks that we're buying. So we've got a lot kind of in progress and ready, teed up for the spring, whether it's capacitors or Stony Bluff or emergency generator, anything like that. We've got quite a bit kind of in the works, but not a lot to report on the capital budgets. And next month, we will add a monthly spend column, just so you can see month to month kind of what activity is happening. It's a little easier to track what activity is going on in that month if we include a column for monthly spend. All right. And any questions on the capital budgets? Hearing none, we'll move on to the manager's report. Couple things I want to draw your attention to on the manager's report. Interesting conversation at MPPA at our last board meeting that I think is really relevant to the board. But what has started to transpire is there are AI, artificial intelligence services out there that will scour the internet for any reference to anything you want and create these nice packaged things that say, here you go, if we wanted to, we could have, anytime low light and power is mentioned anywhere online, these AI bots would scrub the internet and say, here's the 57 mentions, whatever the case may be. Well, what's happening now, and this service has been available for different things. I know celebrities use it to keep track of where their name is in the media and stuff, but what we're seeing is developers and special interest groups are starting to use this to track projects that are coming to the grid. And as the board is aware, we have an obligation to transparency to our customers. That transparency can cause heartaches for-profit developers. they don't want pricing public. It's a it's a piece of the negotiation, and there's a lot of different pieces that need to be factored. So as we consider new opportunities, recently the board approved participating in the battery storage project. I didn't specifically include granular pricing information because that project was not fully subscribed. They were still, I assume it was this one, but could have been, hypothetically, was still being negotiated other pieces of that project. So a project may be 100 megawatts, and MPPA's portion is only 50 megawatts. And they'll move forward with an anchor tenant, but then they're still negotiating subscriptions to the rest. Well, if all of a sudden our efforts to be transparent with our customers provides those other counterparties with insight into our negotiation, it could cause some unique challenges. So I just bring it up to the board because it may be an ongoing topic moving forward as MPPA kind of understands what impact that has. But it's a catch-22 in that we are transparent, so our customers know that we are making and the board is making the best decisions on their behalf. But that transparency has the opportunity to jeopardize MPPA's ability to get the best price possible. So the exact piece, the exact thing, the transparency that we use to protect our customers can actually be detrimental to our customers. It's a catch-22 and it stakes. We don't have an answer, a solution, because there is an obligation to our customers to be transparent. We are public. These counterparties understand that we are a public entity and subject to transparency requirements. But again, we're working through at MPPA how can we address this? I'm just bringing it up to kind of preface potential for future conversations. Other than that, MME, as part of the MMEA Board of Directors, went to Washington DC to meet with some elected officials at the end of February, end of March. Had some really good meetings. Again, we're talking a lot of supply chain issues at the national level and government and what the government can do to help facilitate specifically the expanded production of the transformer industry. Distribution transformers right now are fragile at best, and the demand for distribution transformers continues to exceed the supply. So we are continuing to see price increases and lead times that extend out over a year at this point. And it's almost impossible to plan a year out. We're very fortunate. Ryan had wanted to be very aggressive with planning for known needs in the future. And then we saw the lead times expand out. We got really aggressive with some of our purchasing. So we're sitting in a good position. But that's been a major topic at the national level, and it impacts quite a few industries. Housing industry is really impacted hard right now by the inability of utilities to serve new homes. And if you can't serve a new home, that home construction is delayed. A little bit of a delay in closing on your home can have real impacts on your rates, your mortgage rate over the last year. So it really has, we just wanted to highlight the cascading effect, that it's not just us saying we need to look out for ourselves. This is a national issue that is not unique to the electric industry, because the electric industry is an input for almost every other industry. Very few things happen without electricity. So the depleting supply of distribution transformers is very concerning. We are working with our Congressman, Representative Molinar, to come in district and have him meet with us in district. His staff has really been great to work with, but just trying to get him in our facility. Wanted to meet some of our people, see our facilities, and highlight what we do here in Lowell. He has a massive congressional district, but inside his congressional district, us and Hart are his only two public power communities. So we're just being proactive in building that relationship, and he's a senior congressman, so he understands how things work, and he's been good to work with so far.
Currently, on those transformers, is it more of a production issue, product issue, or a combination of both? We just don't have enough facilities making them, plus the raw materials to make them?
Mostly driven by raw materials, that the laminated steel is real short, and then just metal pricing is through the roof. And there was quite a bit of delays associated with labor. I mean, the labor shortage is definitely a challenge, but I think it's the confluence of negativity, slowed backlog production from COVID shutdowns, struggle to get employees back and reliable employees, have a reliable workforce, and then raw material and other supply chain issues. You got all these things kind of coming together that it's tough to, we can't even get a quote right now. I think we're 2 to 3 weeks out from a quote for a customer. Normally quotes usually come back in 2 days. So it's across the board. I mean, GE was not even, I think it was GE, was not even taking orders on 3-phase transformers to buy them elsewhere. So it's forced us to get creative. Holland actually introduced us to a South Korean transformer manufacturer. This highlights how problematic our local or domestic issue is. We can get transformers manufactured in South Korea, put on a boat, travel halfway across the world for cheaper and quicker than we can get domestically produced transformers right now. That's problematic. And we've not ordered any, we've not had a need to transact with this company, but Holland is a top of the line organization that is very thorough, and they vetted these transformers, and their construction quality is way up there. But we've not had a need to engage them yet. All right, I'll keep rolling on. Again, Ryan has provided the distribution update. If anybody has any questions, the one thing I do want to highlight is we did send a 3-man crew down to Hillsdale, and Perry, I will save it for board comments. I've got Perry's board comments, but included in the packet is some pictures from that. If you want to scroll down to the pictures. Some of them you can tell that the passenger took the picture as they were driving down the road, but they said it was interesting because you see the ice on the trees there. Talking with the guys when they got back, apparently one day the sun came out, the wind picked up about 5 degrees, and all the ice fell off of everything. And it was like there was no ice after that. Mm-hmm. The damage was there, but yeah, the guys went down. I've spoken with the other thing I'll say about our guys is never once have they done just an adequate job. Every time we send them somewhere, I get somebody reaching out to me, going out of their way to reach out and thank our crews for how awesome they were. It's not just hey, thanks, the help was great. It was, the help was great, and your crews were some of the best crews we had here. That speaks volumes to the quality of staff that we have. So, again, actually had Mike Burns reach out to me and say, hey, by the way, the city manager in Hillsdale said your crews were awesome. Talked to Jake, their electric superintendent down there, and he said, man, your crews really had some tough work, and they showed out and did an awesome job. So,
and that's how we got to park in the garage, or?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
What happened?
I was reading that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
garage tree.
Or maybe not the garage, but what's the warehouse?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had to park our truck in with
Yeah.
their trucks because they had a spot available, and we were the only other one that was a helper that got to park inside.
Yeah,
That's pretty amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I would say they had 7 different utilities with crews there. 3 from Ohio, us, Zealand, Grand Haven, and Sturgis from Michigan, so that's, yeah.
The cold water was heat up then too.
Cold water, did they get beat up? I'm not sure.
I didn't hear anything.
I didn't hear, they probably had just enough that they didn't need help, but had enough that they couldn't provide help. Because they're part of the mutual aid network, I mean, all 40 municipal utilities in the state are part of the mutual aid network.
Yeah.
I know Holland had some planned work that they couldn't peel away from, but, Ryan talks about getting Stony Bluff that I mentioned. Again, I like to highlight the collaboration, working with Grand Haven Light and Power for getting some wire pulled into the last phase, but just the mutual aid network and the municipal utility network goes beyond just, hey, when storms happen, we build relationships with these crews, and again, our guys do a great job. If our guys constantly handed back equipment tore up and crappy and beat up, this doesn't become an option, but our guys do a great job, take care of things, which is nice because it gives us access to stuff that makes the world a whole lot easier. So, Casey's provided a generation update, and you'll notice Casey takes on a lot of different tasks. He led the charge on getting the fire protection all pretty thorough inspection that they do on an annual basis, and they put together a report, and Casey's led that up. Other than that, I want to highlight OSHA 10-hour and 20-hour electric transmission and distribution class that we're actually going to be partnering with Portland on next week. That's the first time we're going to get the 2 groups together and start to develop this partnership. Ryan and I have met a few different times with the manager over there, Todd, who actually used to work at the same company Casey did. But starting to build that partnership so the guys have an opportunity to network, and economies of scale on travel, helps save quite a bit of money, just splitting some of the fixed costs, but looking forward to that, definitely looking forward. The only other thing I have really that I wanted to directly highlight is I mentioned I'll provide an update on grants. I didn't have the heart to write it down, but the more information that we continue to get as the government continues to provide guidance, the more unlikely it is that we'll be the recipient of grants. We're still working through, but one pool of money that we were really targeting was rural and remote communities. There's special allocation in the IIJA for funds to go to communities of 10,000 people or less. Well, we obviously fit that mold, and we were planning on really going after that, knowing that we weren't going to have to compete with people with significantly more resources than us. Turns out, as we learn more, my personal opinion is the government didn't have a dang clue what it was actually going to take, boots on the ground, to evaluate grant projects and distribute the funds. Because all I keep hearing from everybody, the state, federal government, is we want to hand out very few grants to very few recipients, and we want all of them to be large dollar amounts. They want to tout how beneficial it is. But we're still working with our state partners, but the rural and remote don't have all the details, but federal government has basically said we want to identify 4 rural communities that are what I would say is their textbook application of the grants. Check all the boxes.
Poster children.
What's that?
Poster children.
Yes, pretty much. And then they want massive aggregation of everybody else. So
So the National Rural Electric Co-op Association, NRECA, is probably gonna handle a grant application for all co-ops in the country. I don't know what we're gonna do because our trade association, American Public Power Association, APPA, has a policy stance that they will not support anybody directly in receiving grants. They will only, yeah, they will only provide it, they look at it as their role as an aggregator of information and a distributor of information, so all the utilities can do what they want. They don't want to pick and choose which projects to support and which not to support. Well, that position doesn't lend itself to a national aggregation of all the smaller grants so we're not real sure where that leaves us. So it was more discouraging comments. At the state level, there is specifically money allocated for municipalities of the resiliency grant. It's referred to as the 40101B grant, which means absolutely nothing to anybody here. But it's a state-funded resiliency grant where the DOE is funneling money through individual states. States have a state match that they have to put in. State of Michigan budgeted for that match. So we have full funds available through Michigan, but the state had to submit a plan to the Department of Energy on how they're going to administer these funds. The state still doesn't know how they're going to do it. We actually had a webinar recently with somebody who was able to speak unofficially on behalf of, not on behalf of the state, but trying to just collect data. And there is a high likelihood that the grant requirements negate the vast majority of the benefit that would be realized through receiving money, and it's a shame. But there is a lot of money out there. We continue to stay involved, but we are backing away a little bit from being an active participant with power systems engineering and being more of a passive participant or active with MMEA and trying to understand at the MMEA level what can the association do to facilitate grant opportunities for its 40 members. So again, it's been the common theme around the IIJA from most of my peers that I've talked to is frustration and how challenging it's going to be for small utilities to get any of this money that's beneficial. So more to come, but I did want to provide that update. I don't want to create the perception that it's imminent that we receive grants, because if you listen to the news, there's so much money out there, it's all this, it's going to be transformative. Well, it has that ability, but there are some major challenges in trying for smaller utilities to secure some funding.
Yeah,
Like, you know, the biodigester or something?
yeah.
Then we write it up?
Yeah.
Well, right.
Bring it up at the next council meeting.
We'll do it.
Also mention they hit roundabout.
Hey, they're just trying to draw attention away from 2-hour parking. Couple other things I guess I might as well hit on. E-bill inserts. If you are on an e-bill, you have a link in your new bill.
Go paperless.
What's that?
I'm ready to go.
Are you ready now?
Get ready to see that thing tick one more time.
Yes!
Keep going, keep going.
Can we please draw an arrow on the graph that says Daniel's participation and add a data point one notch above Daniel's participation? No, it is, I checked it out on mine. It works perfect on mine. I want to thank the office, Emily and Lisa for working through that. It was unfortunately, it's always more of a process than you hope it's going to be, but that's how it works. But I'm happy to do it. And I'm glad they received that information now, because there's some good information that, and contrary to some people's beliefs, at least one person reads that every month.
I do.
No, I think it's a good way to get information out, it really is. It's something that you have to be more active to get to on the e-bill, where you can kind of throw it in your face when it's stuck in your bill. You have no choice but to at least glance at it, but I think the vast majority of people, if they don't see it, if they're not gonna read it, putting it in front of their face doesn't make them read it. So, want to thank everybody for knocking out the cybersecurity training. I got to help a couple. And as a heads up too, if you click on a link or an attachment from one of the fake emails that comes out from Know Before, you get assigned bonus training. And that bonus training is not easy. I had to help Perry with it. I had to help one board member with it, not to name names, I'll just click happy, but no.
That's why he's in that.
Yeah. But I do appreciate that getting knocked out. Want to remind everybody again that May 18th it's a Thursday. That's the MPPA stakeholder meeting, if anybody's available. I would highly recommend it. Some of the feedback.
There he is.
Yeah. Some of the feedback that I provided last year was if they want board members, community members to participate, then tell us what MPPA is doing. So I think they've added the GM, the external, I think is going to be a great insight into how major corporations are taking steps to improve their carbon footprint, especially with GM's announcement of their investments in battery technology in the state. This should be really an interesting discussion, and there will be some other representatives from GM there, but we'll hear from Pat Bolin, who is a wealth of knowledge in the industry. He's been through deregulation and customer choice changes, and he's been on the market side of things and the private side, and then obviously we all know Mr. Donkersloot, and then Tom Weeks is also just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to market operations, and Tom is the subject matter expert for all things MISO related. He actually participates in quite a bit of the MISO board meetings. He sits on advisory committees and is very active with the MISO board and MISO governance process. So I think what they'll be talking about, I'm not exactly sure. They've been working with end-use customers on sustainability goals and different avenues to reach sustainability goals. So I think you'll hear an interesting perspective on what MPPA is doing to support member utilities, and then also a little bit more of a macro level view of the changing industry and what some of these major manufacturers are doing to advance their carbon position. So please, I know Craig has already sent out the email to the board. Jim, if you would like to come, I need to send you that email, or I can, if you just want to let me know, I can get you registered. But I'll make sure I send you that email. But last year, I invited Mike Burns, and I don't remember if I invited the mayor and everybody, but I will extend the invite out to city council as a whole. But obviously, Jim, you're very much invited, and like I said, if anybody can come, I definitely highly encourage it. It's good to see what MPPA is doing, and gives kind of and it's an afternoon. And it's in our backyard, which is nice. So, other than that, that's all I have for the manager's report. The policy for review, we've not done a policy for review in a couple months, because last month was a heavy board meeting. The one before, we had a presentation on a policy that was reviewed the month before. So again, this is just picking that back up. It's the delinquent accounts policy, and just kind of outlines how we handle delinquent accounts. Nothing too controversial.
Next month, I will give a heads up, the policy for review is the benevolence policy. I will probably I will talk to Perry about putting that in action items, because I know that that is something that we need to probably spend, it's due for an update. It hasn't been updated in a while. I will say that we have challenges keeping the labor dollars under the threshold. I will go ahead and share with what I see as a potential middle ground is having different policy and different guidelines for in-kind donations and financial donations. To the extent that the board is comfortable, I feel like my role can manage the in-kind donations from a labor standpoint, because it's more about opportunity cost instead of a hard cost. But with opportunity cost, a lot of it is, I defer to Ryan on, can we fit some of this in-kind donation stuff into the mix. But other items like the banner work for the chamber, I'll tell you, we exceed the $1,000 every year. And I think it makes sense to get the policy in line with what we want to do. But if we don't put the banners up and take them down, who else is going to do it? And how much is that going to cost? And should we, I guess I'll pose the question, is should that be considered the same as writing a $1,000 check to Rotary for, sponsoring the holiday lighting contest, which,
I mean, if they hired an independent contractor to come in and put those up, I mean, do you have any idea what that would cost? The chamber just had to hire some company to come in and I may not even want to be asking this question. I mean, from the standpoint,
I'd say
it would elucidate the
you'd have
market cost of, doing it, and
I would say it'd probably cost 2 to 3 times what we're able to do it for. Because you'd have mobilization fees every time it needed to happen, and then probably $200 an hour on top of that. So probably close to $1,000 every time I want to change the banners. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Ryan, do you have any idea?
It'd be a lot more expensive. I can almost guarantee that. I mean, there's nobody around here that has equipment like that. You just don't want to let just anyone do it.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
I have a truck, I can do it. Well, are you insured? Do you even know what you're supposed to do out there in an MDOT road?
Yeah,
I
safety.
mean, all that stuff.
well, I mean, yeah.
So I bring it up to give thoughts. If anybody has any thoughts on the benevolence policy between now and next month, please reach out to me, because that's my one input, is I think that I can manage obviously board's goal is, or job is to create boundaries and limitations for my role. But I think there's flexibility in the in-kind piece, and what we're able to do there. Because I am very supportive of continuing to provide certain services to this community that we're most equipped and best equipped to support the community. That's what public power is. So.
Just a question on this particular policy that's in front of us.
Yes.
Why do we do it following that 30-day period? Why don't we wait longer? Why don't we wait 90 days to get it out of our hands? Is it too much of a burden for us to just hold, I don't
think we actually do it after 30 days. It's once a year we turn them over to collection.
No, Hillary does it every
Oh, she
month.
does it every month?
Mhm. She has a process that she does every month.
I'll be honest,
Okay.
this is not a process I'm intimately familiar with.
Okay.
So maybe I
I
hate to put you
think
on
some
the
of it
spot. but-
might be that, the 30 days, as soon as you get longer than that, you have less success with being able to contact the customer.
So are we selling that debt to somebody for pennies on the dollar? Are we, what's happening?
No, the way it works is Craig, actually, if you have a better, you're probably more concise than I'd be, but if you.
So basically Hillary, if they've been delinquent for the 30 days, Hillary will contact contact them, she'll send them a letter. And if they don't pay within whatever she says, then we send them over to our collections company.
Okay.
Or if we can lien the property, then we would send that to either the city hall or the township to lien the property.
So if they owe $100, that's what we get from the third party, or do they put a fee on it?
No, they put their fee, so we don't sell our debt
Right,
for
okay.
pennies on the dollar, they take a fee for everything that has been
I think
collected.
that's a.
So we only pay on collectible funds, we don't pay on everything that is sent to them, which is slightly different, but different, at least we're only, it's not a bill I like to pay.
So if somebody owed $100, and we contacted them and they came back and said, hey, we got $50 out of them, and then they collect X% of the $50.
That's exactly how it
Or
works.
they're saying, hey,
And once-
here's our cut for giving you $50 back, you get $45, or whatever
I
the
wish it
number
was
is.
that much, but.
I don't
Well,
know.
and I guess my question is, you know, would it be advantageous for us to do 90 days and have the opportunity to maybe recover that full, I don't know, at least
Well,
like
that's
50
what we
or
do before we
100%?
send it to collections. Hillary does attempt.
Yeah,
She'll
she's
email,
very,
she'll send letters,
Okay.
so there is a process before we
yeah,
send
and
it.
if that customer comes and says, hey, I'll pay it, but I need to make weekly payments for the next 2 months. If we're actively collecting from the customer, we continue to maintain that relationship and that, not just, hey, your 30 days is up, now you got a utility bill on collections.
Right, I mean, I knew that there was some, but still, you know, I guess the question is at what point, you know, yeah, is it not advantageous for us to try to collect it?
Yeah, I think we don't collect much through, say, online utility services or whatever.
Yeah, well, we don't send a whole lot there. Hillary does
Yeah.
a pretty good job.
Yeah, it really is a very small piece. The sending to collections is a very small piece of the delinquent process. It's the last like 5%, and the majority of the work, she's got a pretty good feel of who we're gonna hear from and who we're not.
So how long is it till we get to the delinquent stage? I guess is.
I don't exactly know what her process is, but I know she'll look at the delinquent or the inactive accounts each month. And I think if they just went inactive that month, like the previous month, she'll let them go. Because a lot of times they might pay, right?
Yeah.
If they just went
Okay.
inactive.
I mean, I
So
was
it's the
just.
next month.
Okay. Good to know.
To be honest, I'm not, like I said, not intimately familiar. I look at the end results of the bad debt and go, yep,
Well, it
they
sounds
figured something out, and it's not coming, and desires to change the process are not coming from Megan, Julie, in reaching my office.
Yeah.
No. We do much better than we've done in the past at
Yeah.
this, so.
Well, and I mean, I know because we see the numbers in the monthly report and all that, so, yeah. All's good. I was just probing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, fair enough. All right, that leads us to scheduled meetings is in the packet. Hand it right back over to you.
Right, so you have to schedule the meetings, April 11th, our next meeting. And I guess board comment. Actually, I guess, start with Jim, or any comments you want to make?
Yeah, there is one. I really enjoy sitting on this from an aspect of the city council. As you know, I'm up for a re-election, and I would greatly appreciate your signature tonight on, before you leave, I can look for your support, so I can get on the ballot for this fall to rerun for that, so I can continue to serve on the board. So, other than that, that's what I like, if at all possible.
I'm not allowed, my signature doesn't.
You have to be
any good.
registered voter in the city limits. Okay. And you cannot sign more than 3, so if you've already signed 3
Oh,
of
that's good
these,
to know, because
you
I've
can-
signed one.
you
so.
cannot sign more than 3. So that's it.
All right, Tina?
I just want to tell that Lowell and Power, I'm telling you right now. dream team, we really do. And I'm always so proud of everybody. And, you know, I'm gonna be heading to Detroit in a few weeks. And of course, that'll be my bragging tool. I'll bring up all my cool dudes here and ladies in the office and how it just runs like a top. And of course, I'll always open it up by saying, did you guys lose power during the storm? How bad was that? Because the lights didn't even flicker at my house, you know, and I just had to tell you guys, this is just the best board to be on because it's huge bragging tool, so I appreciate you guys, thank you. That's it.
All right, Dan?
Happy about the e-bill inserts. And I'm sure as soon as I say it, Charlie will say, oh, I meant to talk about that, but I'm happy to see the time of use
It's progressing.
is progressing. Yeah, I know it's a lot,
Yes, so I did forget, but if you want to be on it, please send me an email.
I thought,
It's in there.
but yeah, that's all I got.
I have faith in everybody's ability to read.
Motivation, that's a different thing, right?
Ability.
I just want to make sure I thank our line workers for sacrificing time away from their families to go to other communities to help others out.
Good point.
Especially those that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to thank again the crew for doing that, but also for doing a good job keeping the lines clear when we have storms. Although I think we need a bumper sticker that says on the truck that says, you know, I get to park in the indoors or something.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to note is that I kind of chuckled as I read through the manager's report. There's a line that you kind of skipped over about, did anyone say we had a power outage?
I almost stopped in that and said, hey, by the way, did anybody mention we didn't have a power outage?
And then like the very next thing was Casey saying, didn't run the generators either. You know, so I thought, well, no outages for our distribution guy and no generator for the, you know, the generation guy. It's like, they were busy, I bet.
We're part-time, don't worry about it.
Yeah. So a month and nothing happened, right? And yeah, they were still very busy. So I just wanted to appreciate the fact that when you guys are still staying busy.
No shortage of work, right?
Yeah.
Always something to do.
Yeah, so again, I just thought that was, made me laugh and also made me kind of appreciate that, hey, that's, you know, even on months when they don't do what they normally do, they're still doing everything else. So, just want to say thanks for that. And I appreciated the pop quiz. That was pretty cool. You answered right away. You'll have to think about harder one next time.
Oh, yeah.
We should
I think I
have.
saw.
We spent 8 hours. We spent so much time on our budget, she took the next 2 days off.
Not on purpose.
No, she was what?
All right.
And then I do have comments from Perry.
Oh,
Maybe.
so you
Perry can't go to a meeting. He's not here.
can
He's
still talk.
He wants to. No, Perry did want to just share his appreciation for the crews that went to Hillsdale to help, but also the crews and everybody that stayed back to hold down the fort here so that the crews could go provide that assistance. You know, mutual aid events do highlight that it's really a team effort here and amongst all the municipals, because everybody that stayed back had to carry a little bit bigger burden, knowing that half the line staff basically is over 2 hours away. And even if they were here, they work at 16 hours on, 8 off. It doesn't leave a whole lot of room for much else. So, you know, the crews that go bust their butts, work hard. The crews that stay also shoulder the at-home work. So this was definitely a very busy month, but I think I summarized Perry's comments.
Is that all?
That's all I wrote down.
Gary?
That's all I wrote down.
You're on the phone for what, an hour?
There we go.
He owns me technology.
I don't know if you know this,
Videos
but
of him.
I used it. No, Perry's very appreciative of everything that we do as a company.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
Support.
All right, at 7:49.
7:49.
Yeah. But I know if Carrie gonna stay.
Yeah.